You've probably met someone like this perhaps too many times. Someone who tries to be good. Not perfect, not saintly, just good. Someone who keeps the peace even when peace keeps costing them pieces of themselves. Someone who says yes while their soul is screaming no. Someone who forgives long after forgiveness has turned into permission. Maybe that someone is you. There is a quiet tragedy buried deep in people who try to be good in a world that rewards sharp edges more than soft hearts. And the tragedy is this. The world doesn't break the wicked first. It breaks the good. Not because goodness is weak, but because goodness without boundaries becomes a weapon used against the person who wields it. Imagine a hallway dimly lit by a flickering bulb. You can hear two voices, one pleading, the other commanding. The pleading voice says, "I don't want trouble. I'm just trying to do the right thing." But the commanding voice spits back, "Then you'll do what I say." The hallway isn't real, yet it is everywhere. Inside homes, workplaces, relationships, friendships, and even within the internal moral conflicts you carry alone. It is the battlefield where good people quietly bleed because they've been taught that refusing to bleed would make them bad. There is an ancient psychological design behind this dynamic, a pattern Machiavelli observed with chilling clarity. He wrote, "There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of the enemy." He wasn't talking about literal war alone. He was describing conflict, the kind good people keep postponing, hoping that kindness will make danger dissolve. But when danger sees restraint, it grows. When ruthlessness meets hesitation, it sharpens. Goodness without self-protection is not noble. It's an open invitation. Here lies the paradox that tears gentle people apart. The pursuit of goodness can make you blind to how others interpret your goodness. You see generosity. They see opportunity. You see compassion. They see leverage. You see patience. They see time to take more. And once a predator identifies prey, the dynamic doesn't reverse. Prey can become stronger, but never by staying prey. Notice something unsettling. The world rarely warns you that being good can destroy you. Society praises selflessness, celebrates sacrifice, and romanticizes purity of intention. Almost every moral tale insists that goodness wins in the end. But life is not a tale. It is a negotiation. And in this negotiation, people who never learn to say no eventually lose everything worth protecting. Not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness without wisdom becomes martyrdom. Look back on your life, those moments when you were trying to be honest, patient, understanding, forgiving. Did it always bring fairness? Did it always bring balance? Did it always bring respect? Or did it sometimes bring silence? The kind that forms when you swallow what should have been spoken? The truth few dare to confront is that being good is not enough. You must also be formidable. Machiavellian psychology isn't about being cruel. It's about understanding cruelty so you're not vulnerable to it. It teaches that morality does not survive through purity alone. It survives through strength, clarity, and boundary. A good person who can confront darkness is far more dangerous than a wicked person who hides behind it. The danger lies not in goodness, but in unshielded goodness, the kind handed out freely even to those who would burn it. So the question hangs heavy in the air. What happens when a person who was taught to be endlessly good finally realizes that goodness is the very thing destroying them? Do they break? Do they harden? Do they transform? That is where our journey now turns, toward the darker architecture of human behavior, where light is not enough to survive unless it learns how to cast a shadow. If you want to understand why being good can destroy you, you must understand this uncomfortable pattern. People don't exploit wickedness. They exploit goodness. A cruel person rarely fears being taken advantage of because they strike first. But a good person often becomes a reservoir from which others drink without ever filling back. Picture a workplace where a single employee quietly becomes the unofficial problem solver. They stay late when others clock out. They take on tasks no one else wants. They give their energy, their availability, their reliability, until their body aches but their voice stays quiet. And slowly, without anyone saying it aloud, the room begins to rearrange itself. People start expecting their compliance. Their effort stops being appreciated and starts becoming assumed. Their goodness, once admired, becomes invisible, like oxygen, only noticed when it's gone. This is the first cruelty of exploited goodness. What is consistent becomes expected, and what is expected becomes taken for granted. Then there is the relationship dynamic, the emotional theater where the most painful lessons unfold. The giver pours love like water, believing that the more they give, the stronger the bond becomes. But love without boundaries turns into emotional gravity, pulling everything toward the giver until they collapse under the weight of their own devotion. They compromise, they forgive, they shrink themselves, and they bend their needs into silence because they fear conflict more than they fear being hurt. They confuse peace with the absence of tension, not realizing that peace built on self-erasure is just quiet destruction. And when they do finally ask for something, anything, people look at them with shock. Since when do you have limits? Why are you suddenly being difficult? You've never complained before. Because the moment a perpetually good person asserts even a fraction of self-respect, the world calls it aggression. Why? Because they trained the world to expect their disappearance. The world you inhabit is built on power dynamics, small ones. People who benefit from your goodness have no incentive to encourage your strength. People who consume your gentleness will not remind you to set boundaries. People who depend on your silence will never suggest you raise your voice. Even morality itself becomes warped by this imbalance. Here's the cruel truth. Good people often internalize a moral code that others never agreed to. You hold yourself to a higher standard because you believe it is right. Others hold you to that standard because it is convenient. This is why Machiavellian psychology emphasizes understanding human nature rather than idealizing it. Machiavelli once said, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous." Harsh, yes. Too harsh? Maybe. But he was not prescribing cruelty. He was warning you about the terrain. He was reminding you that the world behaves according to its instincts, not your morals. If you walk into a forest believing the wolf will spare you because you mean no harm, it will not make you noble, only naive. So you must ask yourself, who taught you that goodness must be unconditional? Who taught you that saying no is unkind? Who taught you that boundaries are barriers rather than forms of self-respect? And why do so many good people believe that suffering is the price of being worthy? Perhaps it comes from childhood, the reward structure of being the good kid. Or from culture, the narratives that glorify self-sacrifice. Or from fear, the worry that if you stop being endlessly good, you will stop being loved. But here's the psychological twist that deepens the tragedy. Good people rarely realize they're being exploited until depletion becomes their default state. They wake up tired, emotionally drained, carrying a heaviness they can't name. They think something is wrong with them, not with the imbalance they've tolerated. Yet beneath all of this, beneath the exhaustion and the quiet resentment, something else begins to stir. A question, a flicker of rebellion, a whisper of self-preservation. What if I don't have to live like this? This whisper is the beginning of transformation, the moment where survival instinct finally pushes through years of conditioning. And this is where the story shifts, from the anatomy of exploitation to the awakening of someone who refuses to be devoured any longer. There comes a moment, quiet, private, but earth-shattering, when a good person finally sees the truth. Not the truth about others, the truth about themselves. It does not begin with anger. It begins with exhaustion. One day, the good person wakes up and something in them refuses to rise. Not the body, something deeper, something ancient, a bone-deep rebellion that whispers, "Enough." It's the kind of exhaustion that does not feel like tiredness, but like clarity. A clarity that no longer negotiates with pain, no longer bargains with guilt, no longer believes that goodness must come at the cost of self. This is the breaking point, not a collapse but a breakthrough. A point where the soul finally recognizes its own worth. The good person begins to replay their life in fragments. Every moment they stayed silent to keep the peace. Every apology they made just to smooth the guilt. Every boundary they talked themselves out of. Every warning sign they softened because everyone deserves understanding. Every time they loved without being loved back in the same language. And the shock is not in the memories, but in realizing how easily it all could have been prevented, if they had simply chosen themselves. This realization does not come gently. It tears through illusions like a storm ripping through fragile branches. And suddenly the good person sees a truth that feels both liberating and terrifying. They were not destroyed by being good. They were destroyed by being good to the wrong people. This is the point where the mind undergoes a powerful psychological shift known as value recalibration, a resetting of the internal scale that measures what they give and what they tolerate. It is the moment when the good person stops asking, "How do I prevent others from hurting?" and starts asking, "Why do I allow them to hurt me?" But something else awakens too, something darker, sharper, and far more honest. It is the shadow self. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is the moment when the unconscious rises. The part of you that always knew you were being used. The part of you that swallowed resentment to appear polite. The part of you that sensed the imbalance but was too afraid to disrupt it. The shadow is not evil. It is unexpressed truth. It is not cruelty. It is self-respect in exile. It is the part of you that knows you deserve reciprocity, protection, boundaries, and dignity. When this shadow awakens, a transformation begins. The good person becomes dangerous, not because they learn to harm, but because they finally learn to stop accepting harm. They begin to say no, not with apology, but with certainty. They begin to withdraw from people who drain them without explaining why. They begin to see manipulation not as complexity but as disrespect. They begin to view conflict not as failure but as necessary friction. They begin to understand that peace is not the absence of tension, it is the absence of exploitation. And this new clarity does something extraordinary. It rebuilds the spine. The good person stands a little straighter. Their voice steadies. Their decisions sharpen. Their eyes lose their pleading softness and gain a quiet, unshakable resolve. People around them feel it instantly. Some become uncomfortable because they no longer have access to the old version of this person. The endlessly giving version, the compliant version, the version without edges. Others become angry. How dare you change? How dare you prioritize yourself? How dare you stop making life easy for them? But there are also those who finally meet you with respect. Not because you became harsher, but because you became whole. This is the turning point where goodness evolves into integrity, where compassion becomes selective, where kindness becomes intentional, and where the good person finally steps into the world not as prey, but as a sovereign being capable of choosing their battles, setting their limits, and protecting their soul. Yet this transformation is only the beginning. The real shift comes when the good person starts to see the bigger picture. The architecture of power, the psychology of human behavior, and the philosophy of moral strength. And so the question deepens. Now that the good person has awakened, what does it mean to live with strength without losing the heart that made them good in the first place? When a good person awakens to their own worth, something remarkable begins to form inside them. Not bitterness, not cruelty, but structure. For the first time in their life, their goodness gains architecture. It is no longer soft clay that anyone can shape. It becomes carved stone, still beautiful, still warm to the touch, but no longer breakable in the hands of those who do not treat it with care. This is where the journey becomes philosophical, not just psychological. The good person begins to grasp a truth that the ancient thinkers understood well. Goodness without power is fragile. Power without goodness is monstrous. But goodness with power becomes unbreakable. This balance is rare because most people lean too far toward one side. Some hide behind kindness to avoid confrontation. Others hide behind dominance to mask insecurity. But when someone who was once endlessly good learns to wield strength, the transformation is different. It is elegant, controlled, and deeply human. They begin to understand boundaries not as walls but as filters, letting in what nourishes them, keeping out what corrodes them. They begin to see that self-respect is not selfishness, that no is a complete sentence, and that protecting their peace does not make them cold. It makes them responsible. And slowly, something extraordinary happens. Their goodness stops shrinking to fit others. Their goodness begins expanding to fit themselves. The world responds differently to a person who carries good intentions in one hand and self-respect in the other. There is a quiet authority to them, the kind that does not need to shout, threaten, or manipulate. This authority is not force. It is presence. Think of the philosopher who knows his own mind, the parent who loves with firmness, the friend who supports you but refuses to be your emotional dumping ground. These are people whose goodness is rooted in power, not insecurity. Confucius captured this essence with striking clarity when he wrote, "The man of virtue makes the difficulty to be overcome his first business, and success only a subsequent consideration." This is what the new good person embodies: the courage to face the difficulty, the conflict, the boundary, the uncomfortable truth, because they understand that avoiding difficulty destroys far more than it protects. The old version of themselves would have absorbed harm to avoid disruption. The new version disrupts harm before it can take root. This is not the rise of ruthlessness. It is the rise of discernment. Discernment in who they invest in. Discernment in who they trust. Discernment in which battles deserve their energy and which scars are not worth collecting. They begin to recognize emotional patterns in others. The manipulator who wraps exploitation in flattery. The victim who uses helplessness as a leash. The taker who tests limits by pretending not to see them. The friend who only appears in convenience, never in difficulty. But instead of being shattered by these revelations, the good person responds with newfound steadiness. I see you, I understand you, and I choose not to participate. This choice is what defines their rebirth, because for the first time, they are not reacting out of fear or guilt, they are acting out of clarity. They also learn something even deeper. True goodness is not the act of giving everything. It is the act of giving wisely. They stop pouring from a half-empty cup. They stop nurturing at the cost of their own withering. They stop confusing loyalty with self-sacrifice. They stop believing that their worth is measured by how much pain they can endure. And as they reclaim themselves piece by piece, their life becomes quieter. Not because they are hiding from the world, but because they are finally surrounded only by those who respect the world inside them. This is the higher perspective that forms after the breaking point. It is the moment where your goodness becomes a deliberate choice, not a reflex. Where your strength deepens your compassion rather than destroying it. Where your boundaries amplify your kindness instead of restricting it. But one final challenge remains. How do you carry this renewed power into the world without closing your heart? How do you remain good, truly good, without returning to the version of yourself that was once so easily broken? That final question leads us into the closing chapter, where goodness, power, and self-preservation must merge into something whole, final, and unforgettable. In the end, the journey of the good person is not about becoming harder, colder, or untouchable. It is about becoming true to their nature, true to their worth, and true to the boundaries that protect both. When someone rises from the ruins of exploited goodness, they don't just evolve. They clarify. They become a distilled version of themselves, less naive, less porous, less available to destruction. But they are also more whole, more authentic, and more awake. Because the ultimate lesson is not that goodness destroys you. It is that false goodness destroys you. Goodness rooted in fear, in guilt, in the need to be accepted, approved, or adored. Goodness that bends until it breaks. Goodness that apologizes for existing. Goodness that gives without choosing, forgives without healing, and loves without being loved in return. True goodness, the kind forged through pain and clarity, becomes something else entirely. A force that moves through the world with quiet confidence. It does not brag. It does not beg. It does not break. This version of goodness is deeply moral but not self-destructive, compassionate but not gullible, generous but not drainable. It sees human nature clearly, the beauty and the shadows, and loves wisely within that reality. It knows that kindness means nothing if it requires your own disappearance. It knows that peace is empty if you must sacrifice your dignity to maintain it. It knows that love is hollow if it only flows one way. This is where philosophy and psychology meet at the summit of understanding. You cannot be good for others if you are not good to yourself. You cannot uplift the world while shrinking inside your own life. You cannot hold the light if you keep letting others use it to blind you. Friedrich Nietzsche hinted at this truth when he wrote, "Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." But there is a second danger he does not mention. Beware that, in avoiding all monstrosity, you do not become a victim. The ultimate balance lies in neither extreme, not in cruelty, not in martyrdom, but in sovereignty. A sovereign heart does not fear the darkness of others because it knows the boundaries of its own light. It does not collapse under pressure because it knows the strength of its spine. It does not lose itself in love because it knows the non-negotiable value of its own presence. This kind of person can walk into any room without needing permission to exist. They can say no without trembling, say yes without resentment, and walk away without collapsing. They are not controlled by guilt or fear or the illusion that goodness requires sacrifice. They are guided by principle, clarity, and authenticity, and the world responds to them differently, with respect rather than expectation, with reciprocity rather than entitlement, with admiration rather than exploitation. This is the final shape of goodness, not fragile, not foolish, not endlessly forgiving, but discerning, grounded, and fiercely alive. The transformation is complete the moment you understand the simplest truth of all. Your goodness is only as powerful as your willingness to protect it. And when that understanding sinks in, deep into the marrow, deep into the decisions you make and the people you choose, your life begins to change in ways that defy explanation. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You give less, but your giving becomes sacred. You trust fewer, but you trust deeper. You love slower, but you love truer. You stand alone more often, but you never feel lonely, because you are finally standing with yourself. And when a good person finally stands with themselves, the world can no longer stand against them. And in that moment, goodness stops being a weakness and becomes your most dangerous strength.